I'm really happy to share some of the research that we've done over the past few years actually about how consumers are multi-screening. And we actually started the multi-screen research about 3 years ago. So 3 years ago, we released a study called Meet the Screens. And what this really brought about was an understanding of how consumers really have a very, very different relationships with each of the different screens that they use. And for marketers, it's really important to understand what that relationship is, because as you're creating content for each of these different screens, you really want to enable content that does meet that right connection and that right relationship. However, as we started to really take a look at the change in behavior over the last couple of years, we realized that we needed to go deeper into this multi-screen research. And we did a second study, and we released it last year, called Cross-Screen Engagement, because we realized that more and more consumers really aren't going to single devices. They are now going to multiple screens, and increasingly, that is their default mode. So we released a study called New Multi-Screen Pathways to Engagement, and what we really found, the big takeaway, is that across the 5 markets that we studied, and both in the qualitative phase and in the quantitative phase, where we talked about 3,500 consumers, there were 4 main pathways that consumers engage with when they're multi-screening. And then we actually took and validated these pathways with Forrester research as well, so using their technographic study to look at how these multi-screening pathways show up across 10,000 consumers in the US. So I'm going to show you some of those numbers for that phase. But really, what we found was that multi-screening pathways, have very distinct motivations depending on how consumers are engaging with them. So let's go through quickly what those 4 pathways are. So the first one is what we call content grazing. So this is what people think about when they think about multi-screening, right? They have 2 or more devices on at the same time, but the content across them is really disconnected. I'm watching television, but I'm texting my friend at the same time, and maybe answering some email on my laptop. And for this particular pathway, consumers tell us that they feel good because they're multitasking, but when we look at underlying motivations, it's all about distraction. It's all about fun. So for marketers, it's really important to understand that consumers are really looking for that quick bite of fun and engagement, and they aren't really going to hang long. And so for us, it's really important to understand that there are these other multi-screen pathways that actually allow you to engage in a more meaningful and a deeper way. So the first ones of those pathways is what we call investigative spiderwebbing. So this is you watching television, and you pick up your mobile phone to maybe look up some additional information about the actor or the content that they're watching. And for this pathway, it's all about providing supplemental content that's just as interesting as the original. So you're actually seeding content that consumers want to learn about more and want to engage with more. And it's really rewarding them for wanting to find out more and for that individual curiosity. So, while this pathway tends to be very individualistic, it's about fulfilling an individual curiosity, we find that the other type of spiderwebbing, so taking now the same, multiple screens, but instead of digging deeper, you're actually wanting to share and connect. So think about watching the Super Bowl and actually tweeting about it or blogging about it at the same time. So it's really making that individual, very solitary experience into a shared one. So for marketers, it's about making sure that those connections happen, making sure that you're actually enabling the sharing and connecting and the need for that shared experience to happen. So the last pathway is what we call a quantum pathway. And for those of you who are old enough to remember Quantum Leap, the millennials don't remember this particular show, but it's when consumers are actually taking multiple devices and taking their content across time, space, and screen. And they don't care about where they are, but they want that content to follow them and actually for that content to be seamlessly available for them, wherever they are. And for marketers, it's really important to remember that this is about moving consumers to the right screen. And that's important because this is actually the screen that's all about getting something done. So if you want them to transact, if you actually want them to bring that content with them into the store, this is the pathway that you need to enable. So before, I really wanted to share with you how we're thinking about how you can enable these kinds of seamless pathways and these seamless connections. So I wanted to share almost an example of what this could look like. So if we take James and Natalie, a couple who have been kind of talking about wanting to get a new TV, and as they're watching, they see an ad for the new Halo, and James says, oh my God, I really want to get a new TV now because I want a bigger screen to watch Halo on. And as he starts to research on his mobile phone and his tablet and his laptops, he finds this really great app that actually lets him interact with the content and interact with that TV in a much more personal way. The supplemental content that he starts to take a look at actually brings that experience to life, lets him personalize his experience, lets him start to play with that television even when he's home. Right? So he starts to research in a much more engaging and fun way and starts to even think about the kinds of TV watching that he could potentially do on his new 58-inch screen Contoso TV. And what's interesting is that as he starts to move into the shopping phase, where he starts to think about, well, I'm ready to buy that TV, what we find is that consumers tend to get lost in that shuffle and in that shift from home to store, but also the shift from digital to offline. And what if, instead of going to the store where you're surrounded by screens that are not really doing anything for you, what if you can use your mobile phone as a gateway to an actually more personalized and more relevant experience for you? So instead of having a static show about the kinds of programming that I don't really care about, I can actually use my mobile phone to share my preferences, the kinds of television shows, the kinds of gaming that I want to watch. And so that static screen that's in the store all of a sudden makes my experience so much more personalized, so much more relevant. And the research that I did before I came into the store actually now comes with me to the store and follows me, and that content enables me to really do what I need to do, which is, in this case, fill my empty wall in my man cave into a nicer, more relevant screen for what I use it for. So this shows to us how marketers really need to start thinking about how they can use these multiple screens to really enable that seamless connection that consumers are looking for as they're not only digging into content that they see that interests them, but also enabling the kinds of things that consumers are needing and looking into as they interact with brands, as they interact with content across multiple screens. So just a few key takeaways that we think are really relevant for how you can build and think about multi-screen content. Number one, it's all about seamlessness. Consumers really find or feel deep angst when they feel that they can't go to any screen they want. It's not about mobile, or it's not about tablet, but it's really thinking about what that consumer needs and how you can actually enable those needs and motivations as they're moving across screens. The second one is about, inviting then delighting. Yes, entertain them with that quick bite from a content grazing journey, but try to move them into something that's a little bit more meaningful. Think about how you can enable, maybe an intent-based pathway or a social pathway to really make that experience so much better for consumers. It's all about contextuality. We've heard this today a few times already, but consumers are really smart about what fits and what doesn't fit. So making sure that what you're actually serving fits the screen, fits the environment that it's in is very key. And then think personal and portable. We talk about mobile all the time, but the kinds of content that we serve on mobile tends to be one size fits all, or it's just a resized version of something that we've already seen on different screens. But the mobile phone is a very personal device. So think about how you can make that content much more personal and something that consumers can really take with them wherever they go. Then finally, spark a conversation. You can enable the kinds of engaging pathways that consumers are looking for. And I know I'm out of time, but I would welcome you guys to download the full research paper on our advertising research site, and happy to answer questions after the session as well. Thank you.